G'day and thanks for tuning into the official Mechanic.com.au podcast, Australia's #1 podcast for automotive service and repair. In each episode, we interview experts from all different areas of the automotive industry, and the best part is, you get to ask the questions. To find out who we're interviewing next and submit your question, head over to Mechanic.com.au. And if you aren't already a member, make sure you create a free account. On this episode of the Mechanic.com.au podcast, we're joined by Johnny Kennedy. Johnny is the National Sales Manager over at Century Batteries. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, Ryan. Glad to be here, mate.
Now, for the one person that's listening to this that hasn't heard of Century, do you want to tell us a little bit about the company?
As you probably know, we are the last automotive lead-acid battery manufacturer in Australia, and we're actually celebrating our 90-year anniversary this year, which is absolutely fantastic.
It's a big milestone.
Yeah, great milestone. So we're pretty proud of the fact that we are the last, obviously Australian design and built battery in the market now. So.
Absolutely. Now, what we've done is thrown open to the Mechanic.com.au community 4 questions for you leading up to this interview. So if you're happy, we'll just jump straight into them, Johnny.
Sounds good.
Good stuff. Now, the first one we've got here is what is the difference between a regular battery and one designed for stop-start use, and what issues would arise if a regular battery was fitted in its place? So,
with a conventional vehicle system, the engine, basically approximately starts around about 730 to 750 times a year, where in comparison, a vehicle with an idle stop-start system, that engine on average will actually start around 17,500
wow.
a year. So you can obviously see the importance of using a battery that's been designed to handle those high starting requirements. And so, one thing that we've found, fitting a conventional battery in one of these idle stop-start vehicles, it'll actually lead to premature battery failure. And now with a lot of these advanced electronics in vehicles, it can actually also potentially damage the electrical system.
Wow. Okay. So it's even in an emergency situation, it's still not ideal to be fitting a conventional battery to these vehicles.
No. And here at Century, we've actually got a range of idle stop-start batteries, especially designed to satisfy those performance, the fuel saving, and of course those CO2 reduction benefits that ISS systems require.
Sure. Now, as far as testing these systems, why is a specific stop-start battery tester required, and why doesn't a normal battery tester suffice?
Well, and a lot of it's due to the robust design of the idle stop-start batteries. When a normal battery tester is actually used, it can in many cases actually indicate the battery is actually in good condition when it's actually at its end of life, and that's where a lot of obviously our guys that are selling our batteries have been caught. It says the battery's good when in fact it's not.
Sure. So it is, just for clarification, it's a totally different battery tester that should be used for these systems.
Yep. So idle stop-start battery testers are actually programmed to provide a more accurate test. They're there to determine the state of health of the battery, and they also detect early battery failure.
Sure. Okay. Now, and I mean, some vehicles do have some level of early warning system for the driver with some stop-start batteries, but it's still important to do a proper test with the proper tester there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, as far as charging, so we've gone from replacing to testing to charging. The next question we've got here is what issues arise from charging calcium batteries with a regular one-stage battery charger?
Good question, right? Actually, charging a battery, whether it's calcium or any other chemistry, it actually depends on the charging settings, not actually the stages of the battery charger. So, there are 4 key fundamentals when actually charging a lead-acid battery, and they include the charging voltage, okay? And this is where people get caught out. It actually varies whether it's a flooded lead-acid battery, an absorbed glass mat, or AGM, or gel, okay? The charging amps is also really important. So, it's 10% of the battery's ampere hour rating, okay, and that's really crucial. Sometimes people use too smaller charging amps, or sometimes it's too high. Temperature is another big one as well. So, if you're in a hot climate, you need to reduce the charging voltage. If you're in a cold climate, you need to increase the charging voltage. And the last one is time. So too many people think they can charge a lead-acid battery that's heavily discharged in 1 or 2 hours, where, unfortunately, and sometimes it can take, 1 to 2 days.
Sure. So just going back to, you mentioned on the ampere rating and 10%. Can you just clarify exactly what you meant by that?
So I'll use a 100 ampere hour regular flooded battery as a basic example. So the recommended charging voltage for a flooded 100 ampere hour lead acid battery is actually between 14.4 and 14.8 volts, and that's at 25 degrees Celsius. Now, 10% of 100 ampere hours is obviously 10. Okay, so the recommended battery charger would be a 10 amp current with a charging voltage between, again, 14.4 to 14.8 volts. And depending on actually how discharged the battery is, and we call that in terms of depth of discharge, if you've got a battery below 30%, it'll probably approximately take around about 12 hours to charge.
So that covers the workshop charging situation, and it's often the case everybody's time poor and they want to charge a battery quickly, but it really needs to go on a long, deep charge in most instances, particularly if it's that discharged. Yeah,
because a lead acid battery, and I've seen chargers out there where they'll be 50 amps, 60 amps, but if you get a standard like an N70Z, which is one of the most popular batteries sold in Australia, around about 100 ampere hours, if you put 50 amps into a 100 ampere hour battery, it just will not be able to take that amount of current. And it's like getting a water blaster and spraying it on a wooden fence with paint on it. It's going to strip the paint. Well, that high current will actually damage the internals of the battery.
Well, that's a good analogy. Now, the next question relates to vehicle charging. So, will allowing a vehicle's alternator to charge a calcium battery following a jump start be okay, or will this cause issues?
So in most cases, the answer is actually no. Vehicle alternators are designed to maintain the charge or top-up charge the battery, and they're actually not designed to recharge the battery when it's been heavily discharged.
It's quite funny, actually, in years gone by, the amount of times that, even just on the workshop floor myself, you'd hear, my battery's gone flat, take it for a drive down go down the highway and back, and it'll be all good. It's certainly not the case these days, is it?
No, and that's due to the technology of the batteries. Because battery technology has changed, due to everyone wants a fit and forget battery. So to have a maintenance-free battery that has low water loss, of course, it's got to be able to handle a higher charging current. So, vehicle alternators have a lower charging current. Hence, when they are heavily discharged, the standard alternator isn't going to, obviously fully charge the battery.
Sure. And that actually leads us into the next question that I've got here. Can you explain what the advantages of having smart alternators or systems that monitor battery life and the implications of not resetting them when a new battery is fitted?
Well, yeah, so in my own opinion, understanding that there are many types of smart alternators designed to the manufacturer's specifications, the benefit really of these smart alternators are actually geared around reducing CO2 emissions and actually increasing fuel economy, and they're not necessarily focused on maximising battery life. Battery resets after a new battery installation is very important to prevent damaging the new battery, and that's from overcharging. And also, too, as we've found in many cases, to prevent any loss of vehicle systems and idle stop-start functionality. So that happens a lot where they'll put the new battery in, they won't do a battery reset, and then their ISS system won't be working.
Sure. And would it be a fair comment that every stop-start car needs a battery reset procedure?
Yep, correct. Yeah. So and that's the thing. There's a pre and there's a post, fitment instructions. That's obviously required now for a lot of these late model idle stop-start vehicles.
Sure. Now, the next question we've got here is moving on to the deep cycle line. What is the best method to test a deep cycle battery without doing a slow discharge test? The person who submitted this question has been told that multiplying the amp-hour rating by 6 and then using this as cold cranking amps on the tester is a good method. Is this true or not?
Well, using digital battery testers for deep cycle batteries is just not recommended. Deep cycle batteries actually have a higher internal resistance compared to starting batteries due to the internal construction. So what they have is they've got thicker plates, they've got more active material on the plates, and they've got, in between the plates, they've got these really heavy duty separators. And obviously all those create a higher internal resistance compared to a starting battery. And digital battery testers or analyzers, that's how they determine, the CCA, for example, on a starting battery. It's that speed from getting from A to B, or that pulse from A to B. And of course, a deep cycle battery, because there's more restrictions due to the design and what they're designed to do, of course, it's not going to give you an accurate test.
So really not ideal to be using electronic testers for deep cycle batteries.
No. Now, there are some other options. There are testers called carbon pile load testers, and they are an option for the on-the-spot deep cycle battery tests, as long as the battery is fully charged. And this is performed by multiplying the ampere rating by 3. So if it's a 100 ampere battery, you'll load the battery with a carbon pile load tester to 300 amps. And if that voltage after 10 seconds holds above 9.6 volts, the battery is deemed to be okay. On our point of view, though, we still recommend using discharge testers. And we've recently introduced an easy-to-use, it's called an Astrotech deep cycle tester. And it's actually designed to provide a reliable, it's accurate, it's really easy to use, to test 12-volt lead-acid batteries between 15 to 200 amperes.
Sure, okay. Now, I think it would be a fair comment to say, in my own opinion, in workshops these days, most that have been going for a while have a carbon pile sitting around. It's probably not used as much these days as combined with an electronic battery tester. After some recent promotions we ran with Century on Mechanic.com.au, we had quite a few questions about both the stop-start tool as well as Century's battery tester. Where is the best place to source these tools?
Well, you can get your hands on a range of battery testers and chargers and testing equipment. Actually, if they just contact one of our Century representatives, and that number is actually on 1300 362 287. And just to elaborate a little bit further, we've actually research has proven, the correlation between the more batteries you test, actually the more batteries you'll sell. And it's approximately around 700,000 to 800,000 batteries sold each year in road clubs as a result of people waiting until their batteries fail before replacing them. Okay? And further research showed that actually over 70% of these vehicles would have actually been in a workshop or a service bay or retail outlet, within 6 months prior to that battery having to be replaced. So we're really proactive in battery testing, and we think there's some really good opportunities for your listeners out there to be really proactive in testing their customers' batteries, just for peace of mind and for looking after their customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other component to that is it's such a simple and quick thing to do as well. I mean, there's nothing lost by just giving your customer the heads up their battery's on the way out, and it takes you the best part of 30 seconds to do, as part of from anything from a service to a globe replacement, really.
Oh. And I mean, like a lot of the listeners, I'm a mechanic by trade, and 30 odd years ago, a battery would give you warning signs when it was about to fail, and many customers would charge their battery 3 or 4 times. They might get another 6 or 7 months out of it. But now, because of the advanced technology in these new vehicles, when the battery goes, there's no warning. One day the battery's fine and the vehicle's running fine. The next day you've got a dead battery and it needs to be replaced.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something to be said for being proactive about doing that testing.
Absolutely.
As far as our questions go, Johnny, that about winds us up. There's some interesting insights there. Some things I didn't know myself, actually, so that's been quite an interesting one. So thanks a lot for joining us on the show, mate. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Ryan, and look forward to catching up soon.
Excellent. See you, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mechanic.com.au podcast. If you know anyone who might also get some value out of this episode, make sure you hit that share button. Keep your eyes peeled for the announcement of the next Mechanic.com.au podcast to find out who we're interviewing and how you can get your questions answered. See you next time.